So the vocal break in singing is something I call a release. And so it's important to know what a release is in singing in the first place. So as you hear me say a lot in various instructional examples and material, voice is a pressure instrument. This is a little valve. It's a little vacuum chamber valve. You've got a pressure that's created from your support system, your air, breath support, to this little world up here, which isn't just the valve, but really consists of what's above the valve, which is what we call the anchor in the art of body singing, which is this slap back position, the top back of your mouth. It's the soundboard to this instrument. It's like any other instrument has a beginning to its actual tone, and then it's how you attach things to that. Well, that place also helps your nervous system understand how to really control the motion of the larynx, which is that little valve we're talking about, so that you're not down in your throat trying to over manipulate it. This really works. It knows how to work, and it works better if you understand how to be outside of that, or rather on top of that, as it's often said in voice, singing on top of the throat, singing behind the throat, on top of the voice, these things that have been said for a long time. Again, we call it anchoring in the art of body singing. So these are important things to understand. And when you understand that pressure thing, you understand that there's this thing of connecting and releasing. And there are different kinds of connecting and releasing. The two main types of connecting and releasing are air and head chest voice. Those are releases. Those are pressure changes. So for air to begin with, if I'm singing in a non-airy tone and I begin to release and let some air go by, unless I add energy to that, I should have a diminishing of the tone. So it should sound something like this. So I'm releasing, the tone is diminishing, the tonal quality is changing, and that's fine because we like all those changes and all those different colors. And that's great. And that's, on the one hand, we use that, in and out of that all the time in singing. On the other hand, it's a built-in default mechanism that until you understand how to keep all that air under the tone, which actually takes some work for most people, the voice just automatically wants to release that pressure because it's a safety mechanism built into your voice. It doesn't want to be overpressurized. So what we're doing so much in singing is learning how to have this perfect pressure and not overpressurizing anything and really working around that pressure. So that is one very obvious release that we use a lot once we've got a handle on it. And then the other is as you go from chest to head voice. That's a totally different pressure release that happens in your throat and literally changes the positions of the vocal cords. And that's a natural act, and that's great, and it has its place. And then what we do in singing when we try to get to really defy gravity, as I like to say, and not allow that break to happen, we're managing the pressure in such a way that the larynx thinks it's still down in the chest voice, and it stays in the chest voice. So we're literally keeping it there, but we're doing it in a way that is in line with how the larynx works in terms of pressure and not over pressurizing. So that release in its natural habitat would sound something like this. So that's just this natural deal. That's what we call a register change quite often in singing. I went from a chest to head because I just let it happen. So the key to working past the break and staying in chest voice is first understanding that, feeling that break, and then knowing some different things that have to happen in voice. One is the mastery of this anchor. You have to stay anchored so you can keep that pressure right, so that you can basically not let it slip. I'm working my pressure there, and I'm working a lot of support. Not pushing, support, because there's a pressure that exists between this world, and that keeping that pressure just right is going to keep the vocal cords in the right position so that it doesn't go into head voice when we don't want it to. So there's quite a few steps really to get good at, and certainly understanding breath and understanding that your posture has so much to do with that. It doesn't have to be a static hard posture, but it's what are the ingredients? And one of the biggest ingredients in this working really well are understanding the ribs, and this is what we call an open ribcage technique, really pulling on the ribs so that the diaphragm is really free to work and support this. And then the other is this anchor. So there are different ways to do this. You see different kind of anchoring techniques in the world and break mastering techniques. I like this one because it's bright. And if you've seen any of my work, you see that I like to warm singers up bright, because bright teaches a few things. One is it teaches you what really projects in your voice, which is the bright frequencies in your voice. Two, it teaches you how to have the lightest touch, ideally. So I like what I call the stuffy nose, which is a closed nasal technique. Stuffy nose, stuffy nose, stuffy nose, stuffy nose, stuffy nose. Going into falsetto, because I let it break. Stuffy nose, stuffy nose. So having that sense of what I call connect, release, connect, release. Do that a billion times, and you'll just really have such a great sense of that you'll come in and out of those as you want to, which is great because we want all those for color and expression. But that's what you're doing when you do that. So learning kind of what the ingredients are can help us very much, that you're controlling the pressure. And what does that consist of? So being a master of your anchor. Now, once you're good at that, stubby nose, I. The key is to grow out of that. You hear me do a lot of very buzzy techniques. Well, that buzzy thing that I do a lot is at the exact same place. It's just knowing that that's another little switch, how to open up from the closed position of the nasal to an open position. Stubby nose, I, stubby nose, I, to a more open position. So there's yet another move that you should practice in a very sane place in your range, where you can do it easily. Once you've identified something in your voice, great idea to loop just that one thing a couple million times so that it's just very natural to you. So something like opening and closing of that passage can be very helpful. The connect and release, whether it be air, that's a little move. That's a pressure move. And definitely with the break. Going back and forth will get you very well versed with where that really lives. So have a lot of fun with all those things, and loop, loop, loop. Once you figure something out, loop it a bunch of times so it's very natural to you.